Welcome to the Do Good X podcast, a sanctuary from the entrepreneurial grind. Hosts Kimberly Danielle and Stephen Lewis, advocates for impactful entrepreneurship, guide you on the path where purpose meets business. Join us to slow down, reconnect, and explore the challenges of under-resourced entrepreneurs, uncovering the unique journey of building businesses that make a difference. Now, your hosts.
Welcome to the Do Good X podcast. My name is Stephen Lewis, and I am a catalyst for positive change in communities and in businesses. And for over 2 decades, I have been walking alongside and inspiring leaders and entrepreneurs to live and work on purpose with intention, faith, and a commitment to their well-being. And I'm joined today by my co-host, Kimberly Danielle. Kimberly, what's going on?
Hey, Stephen. Good to be back on here. I am Kimberly Danielle, a community builder, a coach, and communication strategist who comes from generations of faith-driven leaders and entrepreneurs who believe that our purpose should drive us to contribute to the common good. And today we have our last guest in this season of our podcast, and we are so excited to be ending our episodes with our guest, with Dar'shun Kendrick. And we are so excited to have her today. And she is a powerhouse. She is the powerhouse behind Kairos Capital Legal Advisors, a firm specializing in guiding entrepreneurs through the complexities of capital markets, private investments, and venture funding. With over a decade of experience, she has facilitated billions in private investment funds, helping founders unlock financial opportunities to grow their businesses. Dar'shun is also a passionate advocate for financial empowerment in underserved communities. She is on a mission to help create 100 new millionaires by 2032, and she leads a millionaire mastermind group and engages over 30,000 members in her Friends of Financial Freedom community. In addition to her professional work, which I'm sure is just a lot in and of itself, Dar'shun is also serving as a Georgia House of Representative and has done so since 2010, championing policy changes for the community and to benefit the community. And we are so grateful for that here in the state of Georgia. She's an author, speaker, and educator who is committed to equipping entrepreneurs with the tools and strategies to succeed. And outside of this incredible journey, Dar'shun is a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Inc. and enjoys cooking, reading, and spending time with her pit bull mix, Desi. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dar'shun. It was incredible to meet Dar'shun last year, and she has spoken to our Do Good X alumni group. She has so much insight and expertise and brings so much value to the community. And so we look forward to this conversation today and the value that you will also bring to our listeners.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Hopefully everybody in Georgia is enjoying this weather. So thanks for having me.
Yes, absolutely. So, I'll just go ahead and dive in. Your career spans with law, with finance, and business. What initially inspired you to focus on empowering entrepreneurs, especially in raising capital?
Well, it has to be my parents. I grew up with 2 parents who owned businesses here in Georgia, in Decatur, Georgia. And I saw the struggles that they went through every day, not only just to, sort of maintain, but when they wanted to expand their businesses, they couldn't find attorneys that cared enough because they were small businesses and couldn't pay them big bucks, but also attorneys that looked like them. And so I made a decision to go to law school and specifically to help small businesses make sure that they have the resources and the people that look like them in order to be able to raise capital. So my parents are always my inspiration.
So at what point should an entrepreneur and a social entrepreneur consider hiring an attorney, given the work that you do and who you work with? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, this is going to be obviously a biased answer, but I say as soon as possible. And the reality is that in business, everything is either going to have a financial consequence or a legal consequence or both. And so if you are trying to grow your business and stay out of court and stay out of trouble, really getting an accountant and a lawyer as soon as possible on your team is going to benefit you in the future. Yes, it's going to be upfront costs, but as I always tell people, you can either pay the cost now or you can pay the 3 times the cost later. And so it is an investment, but getting an attorney on as soon as possible is definitely something that you should think about. There are different types of programs where you can get some assistance, but really having your own personal attorney that's going to know your business is key. That's one of the things that I pride myself on with my law firm, is that we are starting a program that helps founders to pay an affordable price monthly and get access to our services and to our network. So as soon as you can, founders, I know it's not something you look forward to paying out, but I promise you that pound of prevention is really, really worth it.
So, when they are looking for an attorney, and I know you really focus on capital raising, and so if it's helpful to focus on that, we can go there. But when someone is looking for an attorney, an entrepreneur, what should they look for specifically in that attorney or in the law firm?
So specifically, when you're looking for an attorney that's doing the type of work that I do, capital raising, really you're looking for somebody who has a deep expertise in this. The rules change, the regulations change. Is a very niche area of law. And actually on my website, I have the 10 questions. You can download it. It's the 10 questions you should ask when hiring an attorney for capital raising. But more generally, whenever you're looking for an attorney, really what you're looking for is someone you can trust. Because we are bound by confidentiality rules, you can tell us anything, right? I even tell people, even where if you were practicing criminal law, even if you tell your lawyer where you hid the body, they can't tell outside of a judicial order where you hid the body. And so really getting somebody that you can trust, that you can tell all these things to, really is crucial to making sure that you have a good relationship with your attorney. And the more that you tell us, the better that we can be. So find an attorney that you feel comfortable with and that you can trust, because this if they're doing a good job, this is going to be an ongoing, long-term, very transparent relationship. So make sure, number one, that you trust that attorney.
So I want to talk a little bit about this uh, big goal that you have, which is to help create 100 new millionaires by 2032. Can you share with us a bit about the story behind that goal, and why is it important to you to do this work?
Well, I started that goal in 2022, and I figured 100 is a good round number, 10 millionaires a year, something, that's sort of manageable. But I came up with this because I read a book um, called The Color of Money. And it really struck me how big the racial wealth gap is. And this was before the pandemic. Right now it's a canyon. So it's only getting worse. And I say, what can I do with my talents and my gifts in order to try to close that wealth gap? And so this was a personal and professional goal that I came up with, that's sort of measurable, that I can use my talents to create millionaires through entrepreneurship, and really try to do my small part in order to try to close that wealth gap, particularly in communities that look like me.
So I mentioned in your introduction that you've raised billions in private investment funds. So I know you probably have a lot of insights and learnings from doing that can be helpful to others. So what are some common mistakes that you have seen entrepreneurs make when trying to secure funding?
Well, we could be here for a whole show if I listed all the mistakes, but I'll try to narrow it down. Probably the number one is not getting the right team on board. So entrepreneurs love to think they can do it on their own, and I get it, because you're probably type A like me, and you're just like, I'll just do it. But when you're building a team that is going to be attractive to investors, they want to see that you have the support system to execute your idea, because no matter how good your idea is, if you don't have a team to execute it, it's just a dream. And so I've seen times where people won't hire an accountant to help them with the numbers, won't hire an attorney to make sure they stay out of trouble. Well, they won't bring in somebody who has more of a technical skill to finish building out their MVP. Make sure that you duly assess what you need to stand before an investor and say, I have the team to get it done. So that's the first thing. The second thing is just getting impatient. Capital raising is hard. It's just hard, y'all. It's a marathon. If you think it's a sprint, you're going to be sorely disappointed. If you need $100 million by next month, do not call me, because I cannot help you out. So you have to have a lot of patience with this. You're going to hear a lot of no's before you hear yeses. And so I see a lot of entrepreneurs will do one or two things when they're impatient. Either they'll take bad money, and believe it or not, there are a lot of checks that are bad money. And then the second thing they'll do is they'll just give up. As I say, right before their breakthrough, they give up. That's when it gets the hardest. And so you have to have some patience during this process and just get up every day and do it again. And then the last mistake that founders make really is not taking advantage of their network of people. So I always try to encourage founders, depending on the regulatory exemption they're using, but generally I tell them to try to use like a Tupperware bowl effect. You remember when your grandmother or your mom would say, put away all or my mom would say, put away all the Tupperware, and we would have these bowls that fit one inside of the other, right? And so I say, start with the core, the smallest Tupperware bowl, which is your family and your friends, right? And then you just expand and ask for introductions, and you expand that Tupperware bowl. So, making good use of the connections that you already have instead of trying to go out and raise VC money. If you're able to, under the regulatory exemption you're using, start with family and friends, and then try to expand that network as you build on your business. I got 20 more, but for time's sake, I will pass it along.
So you do a lot with helping folks think about capital raising. And so I want to know, what are the key steps that entrepreneurs should think about, social entrepreneurs should think about, in terms of preparing to raise capital?
I'm going to say is the same thing. Making sure that you have a good team together. Just because you're a social entrepreneur doesn't make it any less, important that you have your team together. Because at the end of the day, investors want to know one thing and one thing only: where will they get their money back, and if they'll get their money back, right? And so they still need their team to understand that you're going to execute on it. And then secondly, for social entrepreneurs, it's really important that they know their numbers, because I see a lot of social entrepreneurs that focus so much on the social and mission-driven aspect of it, which is great, right? I like ESG as much as the next person. But again, investors still want to know when and if they're going to get their money back. So it's even more important that you know your numbers more than even regular founders, because there's this expectation that you're some type of nonprofit. So you really got to know your numbers and how you're going to get that money back. And then, as always, you have to be patient during this process, probably even more so if you're doing social entrepreneurship, because particularly in these times, there was a time when social entrepreneurship was all the rage. And I've seen over the last 1 or 2 years how that is falling not out of favor, but just harder to raise capital. So just keep at it and be persistent.
That's good. That's really good. So I follow you on LinkedIn and on Instagram, and I know you're in other places, and you are doing so much for your firm as a representative, just in life. You are at an event, you are speaking, you are hosting an event, you're doing all types of things. So I'm wondering, how do you balance serving the community with the demands of running your own business yourself, in being a state representative?
Well, my default answer is no. Um, and so it is always the job of the person asking me to do something to convince me otherwise. And so when people ask me to do something, my first reaction is to say no, because every time I say yes to something, I have to say no to something else, and vice versa, right? We only have 24 hours in a day. So my default answer to most things is no. Um, and I let the other person sort of convince me otherwise. If it doesn't align with my purpose, my passion, or my profits, the answer is usually no. That's
That's
it.
Yeah, no, I love that because so many people are challenged with saying no, and they usually say yes. So the boundaries around saying no and that being that first response, and then having that kind of a filter, on does this align with your purpose, passion, and profit? That's a great filter to look through and lens to look through things as. And so that's really wonderful. I love that. So we're going to shift just a little bit and we're going to move to our resource roundup. And here we typically explore various resources and practical tools and additional tips that will equip under-resourced founders as you build your businesses. And so I want to ask you, Dar'shun, what are 1 to 2 essential resources or tools you recommend for under-resourced entrepreneurs who are seeking funding?
Well, the first website that I always give to entrepreneurs is the Securities and Exchange Commission website. Yes, it is nerdy. It's the SEC website, but they are the ones that are responsible for rules and regulations on capital raising. So whether you like it or not, the SEC needs to be your best friend. So go to www.s as in Sam, E as in Edward, V as in Victor.org. Sign up for their e-newsletters. They actually have a wonderful capital raising hub that gives you all the things you need in order to do capital raising. There's articles, there's links to different funding sources and PDFs. It's a wonderful source. Go to sec.gov, go to Capital Raising Hub, and they will give you all that information, including giving you a wonderful report that they do every year on just some statistics about capital raising, like how much was raised from women-owned founders, how much was raised from Black-owned founders. It's a great resource and tool, but they might be a little too nerdy, so let me get into some more practical stuff, particularly if you're here in Atlanta. So we have a great ecosystem here in Atlanta. I'm really proud of it. So I subscribe to the Hippopotamus e-newsletter. They have a great section on like Southeast fundraising and community events. Startup Atlanta is a great one. They put together a wonderful e-newsletter of funding options and events that are happening around town, including my AI event that I'm having next March at the state capitol. And then the last one is dealroom.co. Now, this is a combination between Invest Atlanta and the city of Atlanta. And I actually just signed up today. But what they are doing is they're trying to create a platform that connects entrepreneurs to funding resources like venture capital firms, angel investors, grants, and things like that. And it's free to sign up. So particularly if you're here in Atlanta, those 3 things, you should get on their e-newsletter, check them out, because they have some really good information, particularly about communities that are typically underserved.
That's good. What advice would you give to early stage entrepreneurs about finding and securing resources needed to start a mission-driven organization?
So what I would tell them is to try and partner with somebody whose mission is similar or aligned. I don't believe in recreating the wheel, right? If there's an easier way to do it, call me lazy, but I just like to take the easier route. And so particularly with mission driven organizations, I try to always get them to, not necessarily in a legal partnership way, but to have some feedback from an organization that's already doing similar work to what they're doing. Because if you can learn those lessons and not have to repeat them, why not, right?
Hmm.
Particularly see what resources they're using or what they're doing and sort of what feedback it is that they have encountered. And I'm sure they can give you good insight about what to do and what not to do, specifically when it comes to capital raising when you have a mission-driven organization. And one of the wonderful things about mission-driven organizations as well is the community that you can build around that because you're mission-driven, right? So I always tell my founders, if you have a mission-driven statement or company, find ways to build community and supporters around that. That can be a Facebook page, a group. That can be a Slack channel. That can be whatever. But the more that you build and solidify and repeat that mission, you're going to start creating enthusiasts and evangelists. And that's what you want is evangelists at the end of the day, because they make it that much easier to raise capital. And mission-driven companies have that edge and that they do have a mission that they can get people to really buy into, but you still have to create that community and sort of update them and cultivate that community. But if you can turn them into evangelists, that's half the battle.
It's good.
So I've heard from founders who have been successful with raising funds for their businesses that it was important for them to build relationships with the investors that they said yes to and who said yes to them. And so I want to hear from you, how can entrepreneurs build relationships with investors even before they're ready to pitch for funding?
There's a number of ways. One of the ways that a client of mine does that really is by doing community sort of learning events. So they will have an event, all over the nation and sort of invite potential investors to a community-based event. One of the things that has worked really, really well is to attach on to a conference. So, during the fall is conference season. So a lot of companies that are looking to get those relationships in before they have to ask them for money will go to these conferences and host a dinner, or maybe they'll host, a panel. And really that is to sort of get them to trust them, get them to like them, get them to learn a little bit more about the business. Because what you're trying to do is by the time you go to ask them for money, right, you've already cultivated this relationship with them. They remember you from a previous event. They remember that you had that panel. They remember that you added them to an e-newsletter and sent them out information about what it is that you're doing next. So, doing those touches before you ask for your first dime is really, really important. And there are numerous ways that you can do that and do it pretty cost effectively on scale, and making sure that you are, just pinging them, keeping them up to date. My e-newsletter is one of my favorite ways to do that. It doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to be long. You don't have to do one once a week, but just making sure that you stay top of mind and that you're giving them information that's interesting to them. When you do have to ask them, they'll remember you, right? Because I'm sure they are flooded with requests. So you want to make sure you stay top of mind.
That's great. These are great resources. And if you are enjoying this conversation with Dar'shun, please be sure to check out her resources at kairoslegaladvisors.com. And if you're not quite ready for capital raising, but you're ready to build a business for good, go to dogoodx.org, explore our resources, courses, and an online community, and an accelerator that can help you on this journey. Now we're going to turn our attention and shift our conversation to our off the cuff segment. We have a series of
I'm getting
we have a
ready.
s- we have a series of questions that have not been shared with Dar'shun that we will ask at a fast, rapid pace. And here we want the first thought that comes to mind, an uncensored response, Dar'shun. That may be hard for an attorney, but we're just going to ask you to trust your intuition.
I can do it.
So, what is one of your go-to practices or rituals to slow down, center, and connect with yourself?
Oh, that's good. I cook. So I will find a random recipe of something that I want to try, and I will put all the ingredients downstairs, and I will turn on some Beyonce music to dance to, and I cook.
What is the best advice that you have received on your journey?
The best advice I have received is to be grateful, to always show gratitude. I have a gratitude journal that I've kept for the last 10 years. And it's very, very true, because there are hard days, such as life, right? And to be able to flip through that gratitude journal and to see how my life has progressed and the blessings that I have had along the way, is just something that I think everybody should do. I write down 5 things a day, and you will be amazed how much that transforms your thinking when you go to bed grateful.
What do you do to navigate roadblocks and build your confidence?
Um, to navigate roadblocks, I shut down everything that's distracting me. So the internet, the phone, I put my dog in the cage. Um, and I get out pen and paper and I sketch sort of an attack plan, just because I'm a planner. So if there's a roadblock, I believe that if you get quiet enough with yourself, that you'll find the answer. You just have to get the distractions out of the way. So I'm very much a inward thinking person when there's a roadblock in my way.
How much of your success do you attribute to your faith versus your own grit, will, and hustle?
Oh, 100% of it is my faith. Like I went to a high school with a 10% graduation rate, and now I'm an attorney serving in the House of Representatives. Neither one of my grandparents went to high school. Graduated from high school, and I tell people I have 4 degrees for each one of them. I am a living, breathing testimony about how strong faith can get you to places you have never dreamed. I don't take credit for it at all. I know each and every day is only by grace that I'm able to do this work each and every day. That's why I keep the gratitude journal, is because I need to be reminded, and no matter how bad my day has been, there's always somebody who didn't wake up, who didn't have their family that they could talk to. And so I am just grateful.
So then complete this sentence. Because of my entrepreneurial endeavors, communities and entrepreneurs will be more able to do.
Whatever it is that they set their mind to.
Thank you so much, Dar'shun, for taking time out of your super busy schedule to
Indeed.
be present with us and to share your insights, to share your expertise, to share part of your story with us and with those who are tuning in. We appreciate what you are doing for entrepreneurs and founders, and we appreciate what you are doing for our community here in Atlanta and beyond in this state as a representative. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for blazing the trail and being the trailblazer that you are. And we appreciate you. And
Thank you.
the world and Atlanta and Georgia a little bit better because you made your mark. And so we thank you for the work that you do and what you bring
Thank
to
you
our
so
community.
much. Thank you.
So that was a really great conversation. I really love the work that Dar'shun is up to, and just her story is inspiring, and the work she's doing is very powerful. So I wish, I wish we would have more time to chat with her because I know she has much more to dive into. But it was good. It was good.
Yeah, she is. She's a rock star. So, I mean, and she's doing an important work for the community. And so, yeah, we appreciate what she's doing on the entrepreneurial side, the legal side, and also as a civil servant. So, yeah, it's
Right.
good. Yeah.
And I thought it was funny that she talked about, and funny, not funny, but in the flow, as we are in the flow here, when we discuss what she does to create some type of balance between all of the things that she's doing, which I know balance doesn't really exist, but how she
Right.
works in harmony. And her answer was just no. She starts with no. And the question that I wanted to chat with you about today, Stephen, is what do we or what are you saying no to this year? Or maybe it's a yes, but what are you saying no to or yes to this year? Yeah, and I'll just leave it at that. I'm not even gonna put anything else to it. I do like the fact that she starts with no, because in the episode, if you fully listen to it, I shared that so many people go to a yes first, whether it's out of them feeling obligated or that they should do something. And people tend to have, including myself, I'm not just going to say people, me too, have a hard time saying no sometimes. So what are you saying no to or yes to for you, Stephen?
I'm saying no to misalignment. I'm saying no to, there's not an alignment or doesn't speak to, my delight structure. What I'm saying yes to is serendipity. What I'm saying yes to is synchronicity. And folks may ask, so what does that mean? You have to live into the question. And maybe one day in the distance, you'll discover, the answer for yourself. But yeah. And I think those things work together, right? To be open to synchronicity and serendipity, which is some alignment of some sort, means that you have to be able to say to those things that just don't feel aligned with who you are, where you're going, or what you may be up to in this moment, in this time, what we're called to be and do with our one precious life. So, no to misalignment, yes to serendipity and synchronicity. What about you, Kimberly?
That's real good, and that definitely resonates with me as well. I would, for me, I would also add to that saying no to so I'm an internal. I tend to be an internal processor, and I tend to live in my head a lot. And one of the things that I've been focusing on saying no to is going down a rabbit hole of unhealthy thoughts or ways that I might speak to myself, or allowing the noise to cloud my view and my perspective, making things very cloudy and unclear. And so whether that noise is what's going on in the world that's super negative, that that in it goes beyond just being aware. It goes to like saturating myself in those things, or and having that to impact the way that I'm thinking, or whether that's something's just not going the way that I imagined it might. And then I turn in and I'm like, okay, well, what did I do wrong? What did, in the way that I'm talking to myself doesn't really support me in these moments. So really it's saying no to not living into my highest self and saying yes to being who God created me to be, and knowing that regardless of how this journey goes and flows, I am where I am supposed to be if I'm tuning into that inner voice that Dar'shun mentioned in the episode. If I get quiet enough and still enough, and Stephen, you talked about on a different episode the quote from Howard Thurman, if I get quiet enough and still enough to listen to the sound of the genuine within me. And so that's what I'm saying yes to. I'm saying yes to the sound of the genuine within, and no to the noise, whether that's noise that's internal or whether that's noise that's external.
That's good, Katie. And let us keep each other accountable as we move forward into the new year.
Yes, yes, yes. And let's be in flow and
Indeed.
that synchronicity, serendipity, and living into that. For those of you who are tuning in, we invite you to think about what it is you're saying no to and what you're saying yes to that aligns you with your purpose and with the path that you were created to be on. Really think about that. Really sit on that. And how are you going to hold yourself accountable? Maybe you need a person like Stephen or a KD or to in your life to hold you accountable. Or maybe there are other ways that you want to hold yourself accountable. It's very helpful to have someone or something to really help you stay in line with what it is that you want to do and who you are called to be. So reflect on that. And we hope that you continue to journey with us here on this episode as we are closing out this first season in the next we have a couple more episodes, so still tune in. But we hope you continue to join us. And until then, be well and
do good.
Thank you for listening to the Do Good X podcast. To continue the conversation or access our resources, visit www.dogoodx.org. Join us again for conversations that will nourish your soul, ignite your dreams, and empower you to build an impactful business, one intentional step at a time. Until then, keep striving, thriving, and doing good.